welcome back to my Sumi Ink Painting class. I hope you had fun with the line practice and enjoyed observing the various shades of Sumi ink, from dark and wet to light and dry, shown on the rice paper. Today, we are going to learn how to paint the Chinese orchid, one of the subject matters of the Four Gentlemen. But before we begin, we should learn about what is the Four Gentlemen and why they are called the Four Gentlemen. In ancient China, people called a man of great virtue a gentleman. The term four gentlemen in Sumi Ink painting referred to four noble plants in Chinese culture: plum blossom, orchid, bamboo, and chrysanthemum. These plants are called gentlemen because of their desirable noble virtues in their natural characters in the Confucian way of thinking. For this reason, they have been depicted and celebrated in ancient paintings and poems for more than 1,000 years by the Chinese literati. Also, in a practical sense, each subject focuses on a different brush technique and lays down the brush stroke foundation. In fact, I would like to teach orchid as the first subject matter because it helps align practice with the free arm actions while expressing the vitality of the leaves in gentle movement in the air. So let's get started. The Chinese orchid is quite different from the ones we know in the West. Growing near wet rocks or in marshes, the Chinese orchid represents the desirable qualities of modesty, purity, and inner fragrance. The fragile blossoms are symbolic of femininity in its purest form, and they are protected and dominated by the robust leaves, yet outshine them. Before I begin, I will imagine the orchid on the ground on the blank paper. Then I start with the three major leaves, spacing them on the paper as they are spaced in nature. The first leaf begins in about 1/3 from the left side on the bottom of the paper, springs upward from the roots of the orchid, float and bend. The second leaf starts from the left side of the first one, crossing over to the right side of the space, gently pulled down by the gravity. Slightly press down the brush wherever the stroke requires broadening, and release pressure wherever you wish to create thinness of line to indicate a turning of the leaf in a new direction. And the third one, rising in between the two, crossing over to the left side of the second leaf. Practice these three strokes at first with the free movements of the arm and shoulder, using a single continuous stroke for each leaf. Then add 5 or 7 more in various positions, bending, curving, stretching, or crossing. Taper off each stroke at the top, allowing the tip of the brush to glide with no pressure. In order to show the distance in space, use lighter tones for the forms in the background than those in the foreground. Let's add some flowers. The 5 petals are like the graceful fingers of a gesturing hand. They are never still and never stiff. Though they are joined together at the stem and have a common heart, each petal is individual and has its own movement. Usually the 2 smaller petals beckoning inward to the heart of the flower, while the 3 larger petals are reaching outward, almost as if they were in flight. When you paint flowers, try to make them appear in different positions. For example, presenting an open face or partially or fully in profile. Each petal is accomplished with 1 stroke. Only light and medium tones are used. Darker tones are reserved for the leaves for soar upward from the roots, protecting and supporting the fragile flowers. Make sure to taper off each stroke so that the thin fragile petals don't look like big blobs. In painting a bud, 2 small petals are stroked side by side, and a 3rd petal may be added to show that the flower is partially opening. The heart of each flower is painted last with the dotted strokes, symbolic statements. After I finished my final orchid painting, I wrote my name in Chinese on the corner of the paper and added my artist seals. This is my final work. Finally, I completed 3 orchid paintings. I'm not completely satisfied with any one of these, but overall they are okay. The first one, flower petals came out a little bit darker than they should. Because that, it looks a bit crowded and heavy. Wish I showed more variety of shades between leaves, flowers, and stems. The second one, compared to the first one, I like the fact that the flowers are much lighter in tones. But there are a couple of blotted buds and stems. Probably because of the lighter ink holds more moisture and easier to make blobs on the paper. To avoid those blobs, I should have waited a bit longer before I applied overlapping strokes. Also, to crowd buds and stems make the painting look heavier and unbalanced. I like this third one the most. Again, there is an unfortunate blot where a stem in a lighter tone crossed over the first leaf while it was still wet. Other than that, I like the various tones in flowers and leaves and simpler composition than the other 2 paintings. The flowers look much lively in lighter tones, but it's hard to control the brush when you try to make small brush strokes like flower petals with lighter tones. To avoid these ink stains on your work, please keep in mind that your brush has enough moisture to move smoothly, but not too much. Now it's your turn. First, on the newsprint paper, practice the main 3 leaves repeatedly until you feel confident and your movement becomes natural. You may turn the paper and cover the entire paper with your brush strokes. That's how I learned when I was a young student. Newsprint won't show the beautiful effects of the ink, but you will be able to focus on controlling your brush with a free arm movement while practicing the leaves. Once you become confident in controlling the brush, you'll be able to make beautiful strokes on the rice paper without hesitation. Secondly, you can follow each step and create your own orchid painting. You may do so as many as you wish, but again, start on the newsprint first until you build up your confidence. Once you finish, please send me your work to share. I look forward to reviewing your assignment and see you next time.